Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Nancy Fox. Nancy's known as the Career Fox because she works with high-achieving professionals and executives to create prosperous and purposeful careers that they love. She's also on the verge of becoming a certified hypnosis practitioner, which we will talk about. We were introduced by a mutual connection last year, and we became fast friends. I love her energy and her commitment to help professional women command their worth. Welcome, Nancy.
Hey, Amy, thank you so much for having me. I have a little update for you.
Yes.
I've been certified in my hypnosis practitioner, my practitioner training. So I'm all done and I'm ready for action.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited too.
And we'll talk about that in connection with how you incorporate that into your coaching and how important it is as a piece of what you do for people, especially who are making career transitions. So I'm excited to hear more about that. So I want to start with something that I think bonded us together. You have a passion for what you call targeted networking and for what I call networking with intention. And I think we mean the same things. And I've read your wonderful book, Network Like a Fox, which is a fantastic, really comprehensive book about ways that you can network intentionally and purposefully. And I want you to tell us a bit about the book and why you wrote it and what makes that your approach to networking different from what I would consider traditional networking.
So I'm going to answer your question, and I want to give you a touch of background because I think it's really interesting how this happened for me. I never, I think as many entrepreneurs dream about you. I always wanted to write a book. Don't ask me why. I don't really know why, but I didn't know what to really write about. And I read a book about, 10 or more years ago called Never Eat Alone. And it was written by Keith Ferrazzi. Mm-hmm. And I actually heard Keith speak, and it was all about, Keith told the story about how, as a young executive, he figured out how important it was for him to meet the right people in his organization, in his industry, and how it really catapulted his career. And I was fascinated by that. And then fast forward, I read a book called The Tipping Point, and it was written by Malcolm Gladwell, and he talks about three different kinds of people, the connector, the sales maven, the salesperson, and the maven. Mm-hmm. And what hit me about the connector, ding, ding, ding. And I said, I need to find my connector to help me in my business. And I realized after I searched for about a year to find my connector who was going to introduce me to the right people, I didn't find that person. I said, damn, I think I'll become one. And that's when it started. So I was working with a coach at the time, and she said, we were talking about the different areas of my skill sets and my talents and my expertise. And she said, I don't know why are you dragging your feet? I go, what are you talking about? She goes, you really need to write this book on networking. You're so good at it. And I went, but and she said, no, not everybody.
Not everybody.
So I started writing the book on networking, but it was quite messy. It sat in my computer for about 2 years because I had this idea for it, but it just didn't gel. It wasn't coming together. And then I had a networking meeting with this woman, and I started to talk to her about what my approach to networking was. And she said, you do targeted networking. And I went, see, that's really what's sort of fascinating. People, if you really listen, people will tell you what your message is. They will tell you if you listen carefully, you will get where you're resonating with people. Yeah. And when I got the targeted networking light bulb going off, the book wrote itself. Like I just sat down and it was so fascinating. I literally wrote the whole damn thing on my iPad. I didn't ever touch my computer. Every morning from 6 to 7, I wrote an outline. I wrote the overview and I wrote an outline. And the outline was everything that I would have wanted to know about networking when I first started. Mm-hmm. And so I literally every morning I wrote a chapter and I wrote a chapter and I wrote a chapter. And then I said, but people need to see examples. So for every chapter, I wanted to have case studies to go along with it. And that was so much fun for me because I got to meet some amazing people, including, I just wrote about her. I don't know if anybody who's listening to your podcast will know who Anjula Acharya is, but Anjula is one of the most powerful women on the planet, actually. She has an enormous footprint in Hollywood and an enormous footprint in the music industry. And she actually is the discoverer of Priyanka Chopra, Jonas. And she started as a recruiter in the M&A world. And she just really went to town. She's enormously successful. But her story about how she founded a business called Desi Hits, which is all about the fusion of Asian and Western music, it became an enormous it was the only music station of its kind. And through her networking, her targeted networking, she got connected to iTunes and closed the biggest deal in 1 hour. She got an in through networking. And her story in my book is unbelievable. And she still continues to this day to be a master connector and networker. And she's just one example of the people who have done the kind of networking that most of us dream about. And through my targeted networking, I have met some incredibly powerful influencers. I was introduced to the president of Warner Books. I was introduced to the chairman of the SEC. And all of this through people who connected me. I don't know these people, and I don't have anything to do with their world. If you want to meet somebody, you got to learn how to connect the dots. You've got to be targeted about it. And then you need to be able to provide value for people in a way that's classy, not crassy. And you need to really learn how to just ask the right questions. So it got to be very exciting because through that book, which most people want to write a book and become a bestseller on Amazon. I never wanted that. I didn't care about that because I didn't want to go through that kind of promotion. What I really wanted was to be able to use the book to teach more people in very particular niche markets. So I used the book as a lever to get speaking gigs and to do a training course. And that's how it began. And since then, that's how we met. And that's how we met. And look at what's grown. What's grown between us is it's just like the magic. I guess it's sort of the magic.
It is. And we were connected through a mutual friend who I would consider a super connector, Meredith Bell, who has also been a guest on the podcast. And there's two things that stand out to me about the story that you told. One is that you started off looking for someone who could connect you and realized that you becoming the person who connects other people was going to be of service both to you and to the bigger picture. And you said the same thing about the other woman that you gave the example of, that not only was she looking for connections for her original music company, but she became a super connector herself. And one of the things that you point out is how important it is to be externally focused. And when you are looking to make connections and be of service and provide value to other people, that naturally expands your network and has more benefits for you. And while being a super connector is something I think you have to earn, and I agree with the guys who wrote the book Super Connector that I read just recently, it's not really a title you get to apply to yourself. I think other people have to apply it to you because they see the results of what you're doing. That when you can add that to your arsenal, it has immeasurable benefits. And yes, you and I and our relationship are the result of other people being connected like that and connecting us, which has been lovely.
Yeah.
So That's one thing that stands out. The other thing is having other people reflect back to you what you're doing and having that light bulb come on. I had a very similar experience when I was starting my networking masterminds and describing to someone who became a member what it is I wanted to do that was different from any other networking group I had been in. And she said, "Oh, you're talking about networking with intention." And that light bulb went off for me. And I said, that's our tagline. That's what it is. That's exactly, those 3 words are exactly what I'm trying to do.
It's amazing if you really listen. People will tell you exactly what you need to hear. If you really, really listening.
And there's so much value, and that's an entirely other sales conversation, but being able to express what you're doing in your, if you're in sales, in your target market's language, tells them that you understand what they need and also telegraphs to them that you have the solution to their problems. If you can describe it in their language.
That is so important. And that's why you really, when you're having networking meetings or when you're meeting people, you need to listen to the buzzwords they're using, because the first example I can think of is when I first started working with the legal profession. They never use the word sales ever. It's like, no, you only use business development. It's like if you use the word sales with them, they know you don't know their world. Yeah. So it's interesting about that, because you don't have to be an expert in a field to really get people. It's really business is pretty much business. Interpreting what is happening in their world, or what their needs are in their world, in their own from their own perspective, from their own paradigms, that bonds you with people.
I totally agree. So I want to talk about a question I love to ask my guests, and I love your response. I asked you what advice you would give your 20-year-old self, and you said work on your inner self more than your outer self. And that so resonated with me, because I can imagine myself at 20 something and spending way more time on the makeup and the hair and the clothes and all of the outer pieces and not spending the time that I could have on my inner self. And so I want to hear specifically how that ties in to the coaching that you do when you work with women, and how bringing in hypnotherapy really helps to get to sort of the root issues of that inner self that allow women to have breakthroughs in their careers.
Wow. I didn't really start waking up till I was in my 40s. Yeah. And it just my industry wasn't exposed to it. My world wasn't. It was all, I was in the women's underwear business, and everything was externally, well, I shouldn't say external, it was internally externally focused. Right. We were an inner world, but it was still all about how you look and how it makes you look. And I was totally down with that. I was into looks. I was into looking good. I was into the looks thing. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I thought it was absolutely cool, fine. So I think everybody wakes up at different times of their lives. Different circumstances happen, different experiences, some earlier than others. I think I woke up at a time where it's pretty common, where when you're in your 40s, you go, is this all there is? I think it happened for me because I attained my goal of becoming a vice president right before I turned 40. My goal was 40 or younger. And I hit that. And then I realized that as a VP in my company and in my industry, it didn't buy me any more respect. It didn't buy me any more happiness. In fact, I was more unhappy. And I wish I had known about the inner journey. And it's interesting because I was just listening to the book on one of my runs. I was listening to Siddhartha, which was one of my favorite books in college. And Siddhartha is all about the inner journey. Mm-hmm. And I loved it back then, but I didn't relate it to me. I didn't relate it to, I just didn't see that. I just thought it was fascinating, but I didn't see it as it related to me. And I think we didn't have guides back then. We didn't have mentors back then. We didn't have coaches back then the way we do today. Mm-hmm. It's such a common opportunity for so many of us. So the inner journey for me was really about letting go of looking good and embracing the living good, living with the real world. The word that came for me, the thing that really turned the tide, was when I realized that it really was about finding my purpose. And when I realized that purpose and coaching were it was a full circle, because I had studied psychology in college. I was going to be a therapist after this. And then I took a completely different left turn in that, and I didn't go there at all. But I always liked mentoring people behind me. And I see that it became a full circle thing for me. The problem really was that I didn't know myself very well. I really did not. I knew my thinking, but hypnosis was the kind of thing. And years went by before. I mean, I would talk to people about mindset, and I would talk to people about their inner journey, but it was still all on the conscious level. And I saw how people were truly grappling with understanding that they needed to do things differently, but didn't have a way to stop their negative thought patterns from blocking them from actually behaving the ways they wanted to, taking action the way they wanted to, and doing it with consistency and sustainability. They might do it for one issue, or for a month, and it was like they would go on a diet, and then they would. And that's because the subconscious mind is way stronger than our conscious mind. And I looked around for a long time it wasn't about therapy. I knew that, because talk therapy in many ways can be a detriment. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to therapy. I'm saying when you keep discussing the same negative issue or thought pattern over and over, and try to change it by changing your feelings around it, you reactivate the actual brainwave thought pattern at the most core level. So you never really get out of that's why my cousin is a therapist, and she's very proud of the fact that she had one client for 20 years who kept coming back to her. And she's a great therapist, and they love her, but they kept talking about the same thing for 20 years.
Right.
And they enjoy, and so for people who really want to create completely new results, the only way is to really do it at the subconscious level. People like Tony Robbins figured this out a long time ago. He used NLP, and I use hypnosis with NLP in a combination. So I like to say that I use psychology with strategy to create new results in people's careers. And you can do one or the other, but you'll never have a complete package of results with any sustainability unless you actually if you don't tap into your subconscious mind, you're operating with two legs on the stool. Actually, one leg on the stool, in my opinion.
Yep. I am in complete agreement with you. And having gone through years and years and years of therapy myself, there was a point at which I said, all I'm doing is rehashing the same stuff over and over and over again. And we're not actually moving forward. So I recognize that attitude about therapy might not be
popular. It's not
popular. But I'm 100% in agreement with you about that.
There are a lot of therapists right now who are recognizing that hypnosis is a huge tool to add to their arsenal, and I'm happy to hear about that, because if you can start to tap into the subconscious mind, which is 95% of your thoughts are subconscious thoughts, and if you start to tap into them and start to eradicate the ones that are no longer serving you, and wipe them off the programming slate and reprogram the thinking pattern, and you reinforce it continually. If you keep reinforcing it with new thinking patterns, so that when you wake up first thing in the morning, the first thing you're not thinking is, what a terrible day I had yesterday, or I didn't get what I wanted yesterday, or, and the first thing you think about is what you've been thinking about every single day for the last 20, 30 years, if you don't learn how to wipe that clean and start really the way you want, you're going to keep repeating history, or maybe making small, baby, slow, incremental changes. And this is happening when you hear people going, you should have seen me like 5 years ago. I'm so much better than that now. But they're not better. They're better a little. I'm so much better. But to them, incremental is immense. They have no idea what's possible. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you hear it. That it's the small baby changes. They're not major.
Yeah. So let's talk about your program, Rapid Career Rebound. You have an affinity for working with women who are in major career transitions. And as I mentioned in the introduction, a strong drive to help women learn how to command their worth, which I that's one of the things that bonded me to you immediately. So tell me about the program and who it's a fit for and what the program looks like.
So it's really for people who know that they feel like they're stuck. It might be for some people, they're waking up because they've either lost a job, and there are a lot of like what we've been going through over the last year, 2 years. It's huge. People are, they're losing jobs, not because of their ineffectiveness or due to any cause, but just, the economics of things. Companies are reducing headcount wherever possible. Ageism is a factor. So I work with people very often in the mid stages of their career, where they know that they're feeling like there's got to be something more than this. I should have been further ahead by now. They're watching the younger people coming up behind them, knocking them out of the box for no good reason, without as much skill or talent or expertise or experience. They're at a point where their earning potential is at a stalled place and they want to make more. But the only way they can really do it is to work harder and slave harder and struggle, and it's their confidence is diminished, and their belief in themselves is. And when women lose their jobs, they take it very personally, like there's something wrong with me. What did I do? It's my fault, and it's not their fault. And the taking personally part is very much a gender, not 100%. Nothing's 100%, but it's so common that women really beat themselves up, and they very often suffer for months and sometimes astonishingly for years. And so when they're in that kind of a place where they've been trying to manage it, overcome it, rebound on their own, and they just have not been able to have much success, and they realize that there's something, the way they're doing it isn't working for them, that's when I love to become their career strategy partner and show them, first of all, where their confidence has been beaten down, and help them revive their belief in themselves and start to see that their internal power is way bigger than they ever gave themselves credit for, even when things were at their heyday, and that they were completely they're untapped in terms of potential and belief in themselves. And to start commanding a belief in themselves, not only, on the financial side, but also respect, influence, network, confidence, like all these pillars are essential for them. And having them, one of the things that's also a challenge for women is when women want to strive and move ahead and grow and advance, very often the people in their lives, the significant others in their lives, family members in their lives, children, friends, the people closest to them start to give them doubtful messages, and they start to slide back. And that is why having an objective person to really demonstrate who to listen to and who not to listen to, who to trust and who not to trust. I'm not saying you don't trust people who love you, but they're not always your advocate for growth and advancement. They can't, because they're coming from their own place of fear for you.
For sure. And my husband, who is a coach, says that the people who don't support you having boundaries are the people who benefit from you not having boundaries. And I think that ties into that too, right? The people that you're describing are not necessarily neutral people. And if they feel that your success is a threat or is somehow going to take something away from them, they may subtly or overtly try and prevent that from happening.
I can give you, I spoke to two women. I never forgot this. One woman whose husband was a pilot told me that if she's really good in sales, and she wanted to get a really good, she wanted to expand her sales ability and make more money. She said, well, if I do that, I said, why are you afraid? She said, my husband will divorce me.
Oh my gosh.
because he wants me available to him. He really doesn't want me to succeed because he's afraid that it will take away from my availability to him. And the other woman I spoke to was a very successful executive. She was starting to, really work on her own business. And this is what her husband told her when she was going to actually embark on a training for how to craft. She already made a huge mistake because she took on a partner that was in no way, shape, or form at her equal level. And she created an agreement with this partner that already put her behind the eight ball financially, and she didn't even know it. Yeah. Had she gotten outside input from someone who understood that, she wouldn't have made that error. Her husband told her that she shouldn't get outside, she shouldn't invest in herself because she's not very good with money. That's what he told her. And she believed him. She said, no, I think he's right. And so women, I'm not saying all women, of course, but too many of us, listen, I fell prey to it myself in my junior years in corporate life. I listened to internal mentors in my company who gave me the absolute worst advice, and they never would have followed it themselves. The men told me to just be quiet and accept that I would eventually you'll get ahead. And even the women, told me that I was too ambitious and that's really, so I think that getting objective input is, there's a real difference between getting input, smart input, and objective smart input. And that's where I think it's extremely important. And that's why I also think when you work on your inner psychology, your inner dialogue, which you have no understanding about what your inner dialogue is because it's in your blind spot. Right. You can't see your own blind spots. I can't see mine and you can't see yours, but I can see yours and you can see mine. If I said, let's have a blind spot discussion, I promise you, Amy, you would have, even knowing me for 6 months, you would be able to share with me some things that I can't see myself, and vice versa. So that is why every single one of us, no matter how good we are at coaching other people, we need our own objective observers and mentors. But more importantly, you have to really believe in the notion that growth and you have to really believe that you deserve it. If you don't feel like you deserve it, this is the other last piece of the equation that I really want to talk about. Women are particularly, notoriously, disappointingly poor at receiving. They say we all say we want this, we want that, but when it becomes available to us, like right next to us, right in front of us, it's almost like we don't really believe that if we receive it, either we're not justified in receiving it, but if we receive it, if we are willing to receive it, I think many of us believe that there's going to be too big a price to pay. There is a boat that will be tipped over. We don't want to rock any boats. I can think of one of my most delicious, wonderful clients who really made huge transformational growth in her confidence and her belief in herself. Her business soared, and she was ready for the next level. And she said, yes, I'm ready. And when push came to shove, she backed away and she never admitted this, but when we talked about at the perimeter, what was really going on was there was a significant relationship that she was afraid the boat would be rocked, and she didn't want to face the unknown around that. And so it was good enough. So good enough was good enough.
That's fascinating and sad. And it leads me to a question that I like to invite my guests to ask me questions, and I knew you would have some doozies. So let's jump into a big one. You asked me, why do you think women diminish themselves more than men? And I have a real straightforward answer to this one, and it's not small. I think that starts with men. I think that men are terrified of female power. I think that female power is beyond their comprehension. The idea at the most primal level that we can create life is a mystery to them and is scary to them. And the ability that we have to comprehend the world, make peace in the world, create in the world is terrifying. And I think from the beginning, they have looked for ways, both physical, because as a whole, they can actually overpower us in most cases, and psychological and emotional, to diminish us, to keep us in control. There's a book that absolutely influenced my thoughts on this called Vagina by Naomi Wolf, one of the best books I have ever read. It is very broad reaching. It talks about this and more things. As if I say, if you're a woman or you want to understand women, it is an amazing book to read. And I think that one of the greatest sadnesses of that process is that we took on those beliefs as women, and we not only use them to keep ourselves diminished, but we use them to diminish other women. And I think if we can wake up to the fact that that is not that does not serve us, and that if we can treat ourselves and treat other women with the respect and awe that we deserve, that there is an awakening that can occur. And I think the Me Too movement is just a little bit of that, like just biting on the edges of that. But I think there's so much more to that. And that actually leads to the other question you asked me, which is, what do you think makes women choose who they hang around with? And I was thinking about that. And some of the ideas I wrote are that we get a sense of belonging and feeling seen and heard on a deep emotional level. That's how I feel with the women that I choose to have in my circle. Certainly, I have a desire for tribe and community. But as I get older, what I seek are women who have done the work, like you were talking about, sort of understanding the inner self, and who I can look up to as mentors and advocates and guides for me as I am looking to increase my growth. Yeah. And I think that all ties together. And I like to say that like female power, and you might summarize that as intuition, but although I think it's a lot more than that, is both mysticized and minimized. And I think that's just such a great crime against women. And the fact that we accepted that is such a sadness. And I hope that we are in a process of awakening to the fact that that doesn't have to be true. So I know that's a huge answer.
It is like really big. And now we're getting into this enormous discussion about the whole where are we as women as it relates to men? And this is so big because I was just reading this article today about this word simping. Like there's this whole thing happening about simping, and it's like, boys are being bullied if they're too nice to girls, and they're called simps, and one of the things that I did when I was doing my own inner journey work, and still am, of course, I read a number of books about how men become men. God, I can't remember the author. I'm going to have to share it with you, but I read an entire book, a couple of books about how men become men and who they learn how to be men from. Mm-hmm. And what was fascinating is this guy I can't remember, so I read it a long time ago. He said that men learn how to become men from women because men don't really father their boys the way most of them. And so very often they learn how to become men from the women, and it's a skewed approach. And because men never really learned how to be men, they either learned how to be brutish or they learned how to be, wimpy. And there was nothing in between. So men, what's a man? What's a man who is really not scared of women? How many men really learn how to be a man without being frightened of women's power? Mm-hmm. Not enough. And so I think many women make decisions. I'm either going to play ball with the guys, or I'm going to battle the guys, or I'm going to be alone, or and a lot of women today have made a decision. I don't need guys.
Right.
I don't need them. I'm fine on my own. I'm better off on my own. It's too hard. It's too dangerous. It's too whatever. And a sad state of affairs in my view, because I think men are absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I think that they are in a lot of pain. I think men are in a lot of pain, and they don't know what to do with it. And I think that that's really part of the issue. I think people are in pain. There's a whole painful part of life today. There's a lot of joy, but there's a lot of pain, and we're not good. We don't like to be in pain. We will like to medicate against pain. We like to ignore pain. We like to push it away as long as we possibly can. And that is really interesting because most people will not address a business challenge or business problem until it's so painful that they're about to lose it. They will, it's the human nature to not do something. It's like preventative medicine. We don't like to go to the doctor until we really need to. We just don't like it. We don't want to do it. We don't want to buy insurance before we need it. We don't want to spend we want to spend the money on, the BMW, but we don't want to buy the insurance. We like the pleasure, but we don't like to. So pain is really how to embrace pain as a learning lesson and prevent it from growing has been, I've been preaching this for a lot of years. It doesn't really, and that's why it's not, we need to find our people. Our people will get the message, will feel it. You can deliver a message. The right people will resonate and come toward you. You can never, ever convince anybody. That's why a lot of people who try to sell people, or try to convince them because they know they need something, it never works. Because even if you need something, if you don't want it, people are just going to feel pushed. So I think the whole pain and pressure and business building and career building, they all go hand in hand. What I just had the most wonderful experience working with this early stage career young lady, junior level person, who came to me wisely at an early stage in her career to learn how to navigate the murky waters of corporate life so that she could, move ahead more with more flow and she wanted to. Her initial impetus catalyst was she wanted to learn how to negotiate, but she didn't. There was a lot beyond that. Mm-hmm. And so she's now learned how to network, how to build her network outside of her company. She's learned, we just did some work on how to begin leading her first team of people as an inspirer, not a boss. Mm-hmm. And she's learned how to negotiate with her boss, asking for her next level position and more money in the middle of the year. And she's so excited to feel the power of this because she didn't know any of this was available. She had no idea. And she said, none of my friends know about any of this. They don't know. They have no idea how to navigate the murky waters of building a career. And what's really great about it is, you see the hypnosis work. Now, what's interesting about her, she has diabetes, and she really had a belief that her life was going to be very short-lived, that she didn't have a lot of options. And she had no idea that her physical diagnosis was limiting her belief in her own career. She had no idea they were impacting each other. And so it's been an awakening for her and a lot of friends. And she never would have realized it without the hypnosis piece of it. She had no idea.
That is such a beautiful place to end because it is such a wonderful example of the work that you do. So I'm going to ask, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
So I'm definitely all over the internet. My website is thebusinessfox.com. My email address is nancy@thebusinessfox.com. And I have a YouTube channel, which is, I'll post the link for you, but it's basically Career Fox TV, but I'll post the link. It's a bit.ly link, and I'll give that to you. And I'm on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/IN/thebusinessfox. So I'm all over the place. And I would love, if anybody is listening and you want to link with me on LinkedIn, I would love that. And I know that, Amy and I have been doing a lot of broadcasting on LinkedIn and have been making some amazing new connections. And one of the things that I love helping people do on LinkedIn, when I get to know you, I like to introduce you to my people, especially people you would probably never be able to connect with. I have some magic methods of getting people to say yes to my connections and building conversations with me. And I love teaching people that. So that's how you can connect with me.
And you always post great content on social media. So always thought-provoking and interesting and often out of the box, or a little on the edge, not sort of the common everyday opinions about things, which is one of the things I love about you.
Thank you. Same here.
So thank you so much for joining me on the Align Women podcast today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was such a privilege. As anytime I'm with you, Amy, and your people, it is always a privilege and a real honor.
And we could keep talking for hours, which we probably will. But we're going to end it there for today, and look for more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Align Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com, and visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women podcast.